Welcome to SS1 Music. This lesson introduces world music, the diverse musical traditions of cultures outside the Western European classical tradition. We focus specifically on Indian, Chinese, and Latin American musical traditions. Understanding these traditions broadens your musical knowledge for WAEC examinations and helps you appreciate the richness and variety of human musical creativity worldwide. The term world music is used by Western musicians and academics to describe music from cultures outside the Western classical and popular mainstream. It encompasses the traditional music of every nation and culture on earth: Indian classical music, Chinese opera, Latin American salsa, Japanese gogoku, Middle Eastern makam, and African traditional music, including the music you have studied from Nigeria. The term world music has been criticized for implying that Western music is the norm against which all other music is defined. This is a Eurocentric perspective. In fact, every musical tradition in the world is equally sophisticated, complex, and historically deep within its own cultural context. Nigerian music, including Yoruba talking drum traditions, Igbo Ojin ensemble music, Hausa court music, and the hundreds of other musical traditions across Nigeria, is world music in the sense of being non-Western, but it is simultaneously the center of the musical world for the Nigerian people who created and maintain it. With that caveat established, let us explore three major non-Western musical traditions in depth. Indian classical music has a history of over 3,000 years and represents one of the world's most sophisticated musical systems. There are two main traditions: Hindustani, from North India, and Carnatic, from South India. Both systems are based on ragas and talas. A raga is a melodic framework, a specific set of pitches with rules about how they should be used in ascent and descent, which pitches to emphasize, and what mood, time of day, and season the raga is associated with. There are hundreds of ragas in Indian classical music, each with its own character and emotional quality. A tala is a rhythmic cycle of a specific number of beats. The most common tala in Hindustani music is Tin-Tao, a 16-beat cycle. Carnatic music uses a different set of talas. Indian classical music performances typically begin with an alap, a slow, free-tempo improvisation exploring the raga without rhythmic accompaniment. This is followed by a faster jaw section, then rhythmically accompanied sections of increasing complexity and speed. Key instruments of Hindustani music include the sitar, a long-necked plucked instrument with sympathetic strings beneath the main strings, associated with Ravi Shankar, who brought Indian classical music to Western audiences through his collaborations with Beatle George Harrison. The tabla is the double-headed drum pair of Hindustani music. In Carnatic music, the mridangam is the main drum. The veena is the classical string instrument of Carnatic tradition. China has one of the world's oldest musical traditions, with documented music history extending back over 4,000 years. Chinese music theory uses a pentatonic scale, a five-note scale, as its foundation. The 5 notes of the traditional Chinese pentatonic scale correspond to the 5 elements of Chinese philosophy: earth, metal, wood, fire, and water. Chinese music has a characteristic timbre, the quality of sound, that distinguishes it from Western music. Traditional Chinese instruments include the erhu, a 2-string bowed fiddle with a distinctive plaintive sound; the guqin, an ancient 7-string zither associated with scholars and Confucian philosophy; the pipa, a 4-string lute plucked with a pick; the dizi, a transverse bamboo flute; and the sheng, a mouth organ consisting of bamboo pipes in a wind chest, which is the only traditional Chinese instrument to produce chords. Chinese opera, of which there are hundreds of regional forms, with Peking opera, Beijing opera, being the most internationally recognized, combines singing, acting, acrobatics, and stylized movement. The singing style of Chinese opera uses a highly trained falsetto-like technique quite different from Western classical singing. Latin American music is the product of 3 cultural streams meeting: indigenous American traditions, European musical traditions brought by Spanish and Portuguese colonizers, and West African traditions brought by enslaved Africans. The African contribution to Latin American music is enormous and fundamentally shapes its rhythm. Salsa is a dance music genre developed primarily by Puerto Rican and Cuban musicians in New York in the 1960s and 1970s, drawing on Cuban son music and other Caribbean forms. Salsa uses complex Afro-Cuban clave rhythms, two short rhythmic patterns totaling 5 notes spread over 2 bars, as the foundational rhythmic framework. Bossa Nova is a Brazilian genre combining samba rhythm with jazz harmony, developed in Rio de Janeiro in the late 1950s. Antonio Carlos Jobim's The Girl from Ipanema is the most performed and recorded bossa nova song. The tango is the dance music of Argentina and Uruguay, developing from the late 19th century in the poor neighborhoods of Buenos Aires. The tango draws on African, European, and indigenous American musical elements. Astor Piazzolla, the Argentine composer and bandoneon player, elevated tango into an art music form in the mid-20th century. The connection between Latin American music and African music is direct and traceable. The rhythmic vocabulary of salsa, samba, and Afro-Cuban music ultimately derives from West African rhythmic traditions, the same traditions that are the living heritage of Nigerian music. Today we covered 3 major world music traditions. Indian classical music is based on ragas, melodic frameworks, and talas, rhythmic cycles, performed through alap, jaw, and metered sections. Key instruments include sitar, tabla, and veena. Chinese music uses a pentatonic scale and features instruments including eru, guqin, and pipa. Peking opera combines singing, acting, and acrobatics. Latin American music is the product of indigenous, European, and West African traditions. Salsa uses Afro-Cuban clave rhythms. Bossa Nova combines samba and jazz. Tango originates in Buenos Aires. The African musical tradition is the root of Latin American music's rhythmic richness, demonstrating the global reach of the West African musical heritage that is Nigeria's inheritance. For your exercise, compare 2 similarities between Indian classical music and traditional Nigerian music. Consider the use of improvisation, the relationship between melodic patterns and specific occasions or emotions, and the importance of rhythm.